Ah, summer. A time for reflection. A time for self-love and fleeting romance. A break from the reality of your life that may or may not be forced upon you by the pressure to travel and be that girl. Pablo and I just got back from a 1-week vacation / road trip. Our first as a married couple since our honeymoon. And you know what? Being away from home really puts into perspective how much you may either hate or love your own life. All I'm going to say is, I didn't have much time for reading while traveling. And I love reading. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. Pablo and I vlogged our little vacation and ended up supporting a few quirky bookstores along the way. All of that will be revealed in coming videos, so be sure to subscribe and click that bell to be notified when those videos go live. We also listened to and finished an audiobook during our 24 total hour driving in the car time, so there's that as well. Today it's back to business, back to our little lives as online readers, and boy, have I missed it. Our little trip only took up the last week of June, so I still had the majority of the month to get through the titles we'll be discussing today. Let's jump in, shall we? June wrap-up. First, we have Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. You know, I am glad I didn't give up on Dear Old Sally based on Normal People, because I enjoyed this one twice as much. Not too much, not 10 times, just the same amount I hated her previous title, I enjoyed this one. So they kind of canceled each other out. This novel tells the story of 4 friends who find themselves falling in love with one another. Predictable. What is not as predictable is what these 4 characters learn about themselves through their trials with one another. I also found this novel had many more memorable quotes based upon both self-reflection as well as a reflection of the world we live in, which is, unfortunately, perhaps not as beautiful as its potential. Upon researching a bit about this book as well as Normal People, I found that one of the main complaints, other than the plot, was the formatting of the 2 novels. Apparently, Rooney has something against quotation marks and can never decide when she'd like to initiate dialogue. I listened to both of these novels, so I can imagine how much more I would have hated the first one if I had read the physical copy. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book to those who didn't like Normal People. Even though I did enjoy it just as much as I disliked the other, it still felt unremarkable? That's a harsh word, but it's true. 3 stars. The writing was solid and the characters were relatable and no one was rude to their mother, from what I can remember. So there was that. Next, The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This mystery thriller held me for a good portion of the book. I was hooked from the beginning. I needed to know more about our main character, Hannah, and her mysterious husband, Owen. I normally tend to fall into books where the woman goes missing. But this one was a nice turn of the tables when the husband's MIA status results in a world upturned for Hannah, our wife and stepmom heroine. The FBI gets involved, giving Owen's disappearance deeper meaning, and the stepmom-stepdaughter duo go on a mini-adventure to figure out what happened to the one man in their life. Family legacies discovered. Conspiracies build as clues are found and turned over, and then nothing really happens. The ending had me feeling like my Walkman batteries died right before the big cello beat drop. Just disappointed. Left wanting so much more. Laura, oh dear. Laura, you were doing so well too. I do recommend this book for the ride, but there's all this build up. You're riding the coaster higher and higher, and then the drop is just as invigorating as the second drop in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. You know how the first drop is fine, but then there's that second one that only goes down like 4 feet? That one. You know what I'm talking about? That's what this book felt like, the second drop in the Pirates of the Caribbean. If you know, you know. 3.5 stars. Next, we have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one I liked. This one was all vibes and dark shadows. This one made me feel like celebrating my Halloween birthday in June again. I did read some comments saying this was super scary, and I honestly didn't get that vibe. I mean, yes, there were scary elements, but I grew up reading King. You're gonna have to try harder than that. I did also read a comment comparing this one to The Hacienda, saying that one was scarier, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Mexican Gothic actually goes into some historical fiction elements I appreciated regarding culture and poisons, I'll say. I recommend this book to anyone who wants a short Gothic horror novel with interesting characters, rich history, and a somewhat predictable but nonetheless satisfying plot. 4 stars. I also just love the name Noemi. It has much MC energy. Noemi? Noemi. I like it. Next, Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. You know, I expected more out of this book than the description on the back cover. You know when you see a trailer for a movie and you think, wow, That looks like a good movie. I'm willing to leave the comfort of my own home and pay money I've exchanged hours of my life to purchase a ticket to see this movie. And then you see the movie and find that all the best parts were in the trailer and you could have just stayed home and wasted your cash on a novelty mug instead. They're coming. 'Cause that's kind of what this book felt like. If you know a bit of Shakespeare's history, you already know kind of the outcome of this book. It's about grief, essentially. The unique cruelty of losing a child. 3.2 stars, because it had excellent prose, it was very well written, it was just not very exciting. Alright, then the good stuff. The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, the second installment in the Poppy War trilogy and the only book this month I took so seriously. It is rare when you find a book series that captivates you so intensely, you genuinely care for the fate of the characters. Kuang not only nails gaining a reader's empathy for the characters, she also brilliantly weaves world building into her narrative without it feeling like information dumping. She uses the perfect amount of realism and magic to create a believable world for the story in which her characters live, and I applaud her for that because even Lord of the Rings had some character issues. I don't want to give anything away. No spoilers, but the stakes are higher. I already have The Burning God, Book 3, on hold, and I recommend this trilogy to those who maybe want to give fantasy a chance without jumping all the way in just yet. These books don't exactly feel like reading fantasy. They feel more like historical fiction with magical realism. But the fantastical elements are so well woven through the plot, you won't even blink twice at their presence. 5 stars. 5. Just so good. 5. The whole series. 5-star series. Go read it. Next, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I wanted something that was going to calm my anxious mind before being trapped in a car for hours upon hours in the sun, creeping farther and farther away from my comfort zone. I wanted something that was going to prime my mind for a vacation, which Henry's books tend to do. I wanted something simple and predictable and satisfying with a bit of romance, and I know by now that Henry's books are all of those things. However, this one, her latest release, surprised me just a little bit. Yes, all of those expected elements were in the book, but there was also a sister dynamic that I appreciated as well. Being a little sister is one of my favorite attributes about myself. I'm a pain in my big sister's caboose, but she loves me for it anyway. In a Henry book, I expect a heterosexual relationship sparking over at least a decade of them knowing one another. Man and woman meet in college and don't like each other in the beginning, but then, as they near 30, they fall in love and have one steamy, smutty scene, and then there's a marriage proposal at the end of the book. And it all takes place in a place far away from home because they're always on some sort of vacation. That's it. That's all of the Emily Henry books. But this one had a sister character, a pregnant sister who convinces our main female character to take this trip with her in the first place so she may have one last hurrah before the child chains her down. I appreciated their relationship. I appreciated having a love story in the novel that wasn't the bullet point factory set story previously explained. I appreciated their love for one another, and reading it made me want to take a vacation with my own sister. Just the two of us. And since we're both married, we won't ditch each other for a little summer fling. We would sip margaritas by the pool and people watch and create elaborate backstories for all the interesting characters we see. We do that. So who do I recommend this book to? Those who want an Emily Henry book. If the formula I just described feels like a satisfying afternoon, then read this one. If you enjoyed People We Meet on Vacation and beach read, go ahead. Read this one too. It's the exact same, but just a little different. I will say I do very much enjoy her writing style. I think that's what makes these books more than worthwhile while reading. You don't feel like you're wasting your time reading because the writing is actually quite good. 4 stars. I did read this one like towards the beginning of the month, and then I'll explain in a future video that I wanted another one of her books to get myself ready. Alright, now on to July TBR. The heat is building and so is my desire for something good to read. First, we have one of my want-to-read titles from my Pride list. Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman? I did a quick description in that previous video, so I won't repeat myself too much here, but the main premise of the story revolves around the sexual awakening of a young Italian Jewish boy when another Jewish American man comes to stay in his family's villa. I expect this story will be pulling at my heartstrings as well as have me planning our next vacation overseas. Makes me nervous. Next, Alone With You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I actually tried reading a bit of this on our road trip and couldn't find time to give it the attention it deserved, so now that I'm home, I plan to read this thoroughly. This is an unconventional love story between two unconventional characters and my first read of Olivia Blake's. The hype this is getting online is not the same hype I've seen for other books. This one is receiving "I found a gem among mud" type of vibes. The quotes I'm hearing are immaculate, and I expect to be swept away in the prose. Yeah. I loved it. Next, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. I am beyond excited to start this one after reading House of Earth and Blood. I am also excited to hear that Maas is writing her next installment of the Crescent City series before releasing the next ACOTAR book, since I know that one will likely be about Elaine, but I may just eat my words when it comes out. Who knows what she has in store for us? House of Sky and Breath is book 2 in the Crescent City series, and I cannot wait to see how Bryce may live after she's made the drop. Spoiler. She makes the drop in the end of the first one. What her and Hunt get themselves into after the epic events that took place at the end of the first book. Excited. I'm excited. I also can't believe I've gotten this far without receiving any spoilers as well. Knock on wood. All right, next we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. When I say I have heard nothing but good things about this author, I even follow her on TikTok, and I've never read anything by her just yet. This will be my first coho book, as they call her. And I am excited to see what the hype is all about. People online tend to warn that her books will shatter you into a million little pieces, and that sort of masochism just calls my name. This is not the only coho book I currently own. I actually don't own this one, I'm renting it from the library, but I do own a few other of her titles which I intend to get to soon. Okay, next we have a title I mentioned previously in this video, The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I want horror. I want goth. I want mystery. I want to be thrilled, and I want a good story. You, dear viewers, have told me this is the title that does all of those things, so I am down. I've also heard that unlike the just vibes aspect of Mexican Gothic, The Hacienda has much more vibrant vibes. I can't wait. Halloween, every month, please. Alright, for the last title on my list, we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. On trend with my wanting to read books that take place in other places right now. The Paris Apartment is described as a mystery thriller as a sister comes looking for her missing brother in his Paris apartment. She finds questionable characters and uncovers secrets about her brother's life in a foreign land. That's all the information I have so far on this story, and that's all I need. I've dove into longer books with less information, so I am ready for the suspense. Now time for all of you Pablo fans to get your fix. My dear husband did get to read a full book start to finish on our little trip, so I pass the mic to him so he may tell you himself. Shabaldoo!
For my part, this month went a little different than planned. I don't know what to do with myself. Let's start with my wrap-up. I finished looking for Alaska, and I was quite pleased. I went to it not expecting to gain much since we had already watched the show and found it to be really good. But it was different enough with some aspects handled better, with more nuance in the book, I would say, and some, I'd argue, played out better in the show. This actually led to us rewatching the show with the failed intention to do a live discussion on the differences between the two. I don't think we're doing that anymore, right?
We could.
In any case, the story is quite great. On the surface, it's a story of a teen trying to find friends and fit in at his new school. But really, it's a story of finding balance and even tries to tackle the all-important challenge of finding the meaning of life out of despair and suffering, something we all experience to different degrees. Even better, the suffering is successfully portrayed as multivariable, caused by the malevolence of nature, people around us, and even ourselves. Overall, I'd say it's a story definitely worth reading and or watching. There's a definite appeal towards a younger audience, but I'd say most people can find something to appreciate. Next, and unexpectedly, Nadia and I started and finished the graphic audiobook of ACOTAR. You can hear my more immediate and in-depth thoughts of the book in the travel blog when that comes out. Briefly here, I'll say that I quite enjoyed it and found the adventure hero story to be really compelling and with good world building and all of that. Well, there's also a romantic fantasy layer on that could stand on its own. This aspect was less enjoyable to me, but I am not the target audience for that fantasy. I was trying to say, like, if this is keeping it from having a wider reach.
So you think if there was no romance, it would have a wider reach?
I think it could, yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Well, I don't know. That's the point.
Men take pause when it comes to romantic fantasies.
Okay, then I'm right. Like, you could say that men are wrong for doing that, but if that's the reason they're not reading it, then I'm right.
But the men that I have seen that have read it all love it just as much as the women. I've actually never seen a man on social media, on TikTok or BookTok or whatever, not enjoy the book. I've seen some women who don't like it. but I have never...
Really?
Yes. I've seen some women
We should
that
talk
have
about this in the
DNF,
live.
but-
Really?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Or that have read the first 2 and didn't finish because they didn't get into it.
I can't quite decide if this aspect is keeping the book from being more widely adopted. I also feel like I can't comment on that since I haven't been exposed to the rest of the books. I think I'll have to find out.
Yep.
Lastly, I read... Oh, no I didn't. I started reading Red Rising and was starting to enjoy it more. Then I would say I got a little busy to enjoy this particular book. I found it more difficult and unpleasant to only read a few pages at a time. This one needs to be consumed in larger chunks, and I didn't find the time with our trip and other things, like trying to stop the store, etc.
Coming soon.
So far I said there's quite a few characters, something I tend to struggle with, even in real life when meeting a new group of people. Like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Well, I'm not gonna remember any of you.
Jeez, Dave. Is that why you also don't save anyone's number in your phone?
No, that's just laziness. There's also an issue in movies and TV, especially if the actors look alike. And well, apparently it's hard in books as well. Maybe even more so, since there's no faces or voices to try and associate names with. And books seem to try to give people unique names. I'm finding that a little annoying across all books, really, but whatever. I'm not DNFing, but I think I want to start over. And remember, I hate that, so it's pretty good. So what's on my TBR? Well, Red Rising again. I also want to give A Little Life a shot. It came up in the discussion a few weeks ago, and Nadia had a really interesting take on the end. One she didn't want to share with the world, so I want to see what I can get out of it. This one has been discussed plenty here in the past, so go watch that video if you haven't already. We'll see how that one goes, but alternatively, I might just jump into the second book of the Alcatraz series. Again, we'll discuss in the past. Go watch this video somewhere. I don't want to get too overly ambitious, so we'll end it here for now. And back to you.
Alright, that's all I have for you today, dear viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe for more. Also be sure to click that bell to be notified when our traveling vlog comes out. We have a lot of footage to comb through, so stick around. I'll also be releasing a haul of all the books we purchased while on our trip and the different bookstores we went to. Who knows, we might turn this into a little series. Also, if you want to be even more notified when we put stuff on the internet, be sure to text this number. What do we text the number? Join? Book Club. Text Book Club to this number. And you can talk to us directly. Hello.
Hello.
Today's shout out goes to Lisa B's Creative World. I appreciate all of your lovely and informative comments. This comment being the main reason for my choice in reading the Hacienda after Mexican Gothic. I agree, Hamlet did have some lovely prose. I did enjoy that aspect. Also, your reading speed is beyond impressive. I salute you. Alright, I'm off to go plan our next trip and give myself even more unnecessary anxiety. Stay lost, keep reading. Godspeed, dear traveler. Goodbye. Oh.
Really doing that every time?
Yeah.